You're listening to Lemon's Listening Library. Discover the story behind the stories with unique and raw conversations from the people who make your favorite books a reality. Thank you for coming to this episode of Lemon's Listening Library. I'm your host, Randie Lemons, fantasy author, or RL Rose to those of you in the romance community. I am joined today by my amazing co-host, Kathy. Kathy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Good morning, y'all. I'm Kathy Ireland. I am an accounts receivable specialist by day and an avid book reader, audiobook listener by night. And then I also do audiobook production management for one of my very favorite authors. So
Awesome. All right, before we jump in and introduce our amazing guest, we are going to do a little bit of housekeeping. If you guys are interested in joining our Patreon to receive our services to advertise your books or your services on our platforms, head over to Patreon. It's a great way to support the show and also get your stuff out there to potential listeners and clients. All right, guys, today we are super excited about our guest, Bradford Wilson. Bradford, would you tell our listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Yes, more than happy to. So I am an audiobook narrator and also an avid audiobook listener and a reader. I work under the name Bradford Wilson and also the name Brad Channing. Should have some books coming out with that name shortly. Bradford Wilson is going to be my, we'll say, adult book name.
Is the Channing for like fantasy or what genre is that?
That's actually going to be everything else. I just don't want it to get confused. Sometimes I do the motivational, inspirational, religious, and don't really want to cross boundaries with that.
That made sense. And the way that pen names work is you do get to separate out your identities in those different areas. And I had no idea that was a thing until very recently where you have spicy romance authors who also write, YA or children's books. So it's good to separate them out. And just like you said, romance versus religion might not go so well together.
Exactly.
plus it's cozy romance and well, maybe.
Awesome. So kind of tell us a little bit about what got you into the narration scene or what drew you into that passion.
Okay. So I have always loved attempting voices as I was growing up, and kind of not necessarily audiobook narration, but voice acting in general was always an interest of mine, but never really knew that that was something that real people could do. I always thought it was just, maybe actors in Hollywood or people that just knew somebody could get into it. And scrolling through YouTube one day, I found a video that showed, someone actually doing home recording and, voice acting in their closet, and thought, I have a closet. Why can't I do this? So kind of went down the rabbit hole of YouTube and just learned what equipment I needed to get and how to get started.
So buying that equipment, was that kind of like, I'm gonna do this. This is my path, that sort of thing?
Yes. So everything I ever want to do, I kind of put off and say, well, when I have this much money, I'll do this. Whenever I achieve this goal, then I'll try to do this. And everything just gets pushed to the back burner. So with this, it was something that just I was very driven to do. So I just found a warehouse site where they had like Amazon returns and stuff like that. And, everything was kind of marked down and it went to the highest bidder. So I took about $100 and got all the equipment that I needed and just threw it in the closet and said, if I don't do it, I won't do it.
I like that. Yeah, you definitely put a monetary value into your investment and like belief in yourself.
Right.
Now, were you in the book scene before this? Did you read or was this kind of like all new experiences all the way around?
So I started reading actually in my early 20s. I was never a big reader. I was the kind of person that would get the Cliff Notes in school just so that I wouldn't have to read. And even then, and I would skim those. I would not read anything that was put in front of me. And a buddy one day that I was living with just handed me a book because I looked at him and said, how do you read all the time? What is wrong with you? And he handed me a book and said, read to chapter 5. And if you don't want to read anymore, give me the book back. And I read to chapter 5 and then got to chapter 10 and just kept going. And it was a book series. So I had to keep reading and devouring as much as I could get my hands on. And that series alone, I've read at least 4 times and listened to the audiobooks.
Right, now we have to know.
Yeah.
Do what now?
What book is it?
So it was book 1 of the Wheel of Time series. So it was Eye of the World, written by Robert Jordan.
I don't think, is that fantasy or what genre is that?
It is fantasy, yes.
Nice. I don't think I've heard that one yet.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's an incredible series. If you haven't read it and you enjoy fantasy, you should definitely pick it up.
Tell me the name one more time.
So the first book is Eye of the World, and the series is The Wheel of Time.
Wheel of Time. Okay.
Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, right?
Robert Jordan, yes.
So you read that book. When did you said that you're an avid audiobook listener. So when did you get into that, and what books kind of caught your attention?
So I started listening to audiobooks probably about 6 or 7 years ago. And I was reading Stephen King at the time, and it got to where my work schedule was so erratic, and I was just tired all the time, and found that I just wasn't able to read as often as I would like. So I started listening to audiobooks while I was at work, and it was my new escape. So if I had an audiobook playing, work just flew by.
I found that too.
Stephen King one? Yeah, same. Me too. Was it the Stephen King book that you started listening to since you couldn't read it?
I don't even remember the first audiobook. I've listened to so many at this point, and I've completely forgotten which book it was and which books that I began with. It was, I want to say Hoopla, which was a library website where you could listen to audiobooks for free, and started with those. And after I got through every author that I knew of, I started, buying the audiobooks and checking them out from the library, and pretty much anything that I could get, I listened to.
Yeah, Libby was another one of the sites that I first found to start listening to books. And I was in the same boat as you. I worked and it was a retail job, so I stocked shelves in the back, and I was like, inventory got done so much faster. I enjoyed my job
Right.
so much more because mentally I was not actually there.
Oh yeah, it makes the world so much better. I was working on an assembly line, and,
Oh,
it's constant go. So the fact that I was able to do that and continue doing my job was great.
now, imposter something. Yeah, that's the word. Imposter syndrome. That is something that I imagine everyone who drastically shifts their roles, professionally or otherwise, goes through. Is that something that you experienced?
It is. I want to say it's something that I've experienced almost continuously. You you want to try something that's new. You want to try something that is an incredible thing, and you listen to other narrators, and it's challenging because you hear how great other people are, and you never feel up to that level. Whenever I got on TikTok, there's a ton of narrators that are just amazing, and I would just listen to them, and even if they hadn't even done a book yet, just listening and being astounded by the talent that is out there, it's very overwhelming.
Do you find yourself like kind of tearing yourself down a little bit when you do that? Like, oh, I'm not as good as them, or are you like, I want to, accomplish something as great as them? And then do you find that trying to shift it into a positive light is more helpful than going the negative route?
It definitely is. I find that it is kind of both. I feel like I tear myself down, but at the same time wanting to do better. And I have, no matter what the job, I've always tried to be the best. And knowing that I have so far to go and so much to learn, it's beneficial to listen to those that I feel are better, and it makes me want to improve and keep going, and listening to author feedback. Whenever an author says, "You brought my characters to life," that is the greatest compliment, and that's the biggest motivator for me to continue.
Yeah, and I think shifting that mindset into that negative stuff, using it as a motivator instead of that tearing yourself down is huge, because you can use it as a motivator instead of that, and that's awesome.
Bradford, I have a question. So do you have like a narrator or a handful of narrators that are kind of like your I don't want to say bar, but people that you listen to kind of help motivate you to, maybe help you through a difficult scene that you're doing or whatever? Do you have anybody that is kind of like your go-to person that you go listen to?
Honestly, I don't have a specific person. There are people that just have amazing voices, and their tone, their pacing are so spot on. I almost hesitate to name anyone just because of the fact that, there's so many. But you listen to on TikTok, like Carmen Chantel. She is just astounding and could read literally any phone book or the back of a box of cereal, and I would just be enraptured. And then you have like Dana Morris, who's her pitch, her tone, her pacing is incredible, and it's something that I aspire to.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
And they're new.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah, they're all fairly new, and that's kind of another big motivator, is the fact that I'm so recently getting into this and knowing that people are to this level at this early stage. And it's something that I know that I can achieve because others have as well.
Yeah, no, you've got this. And your voice, like, I love listening to your voice. Even when I found you on TikTok and I was listening to you on there, I was like, you just have the baritone that is nice and deep, but it's not too like scratchy. It is just that perfect. We're both very picky narrator, like with that. And yeah, I think you're gonna do great in this field.
Well, thank you so much.
So
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
yeah, of course. And trust me, that's not gonna be the first compliment you get, and I'm sure you've already gotten plenty. So you also struggled with a lot of physical things that have coming up. Oh my gosh. I
Yeah.
am never gonna be a narrator because words are hard for me.
Oh, trust me, unless I have a script in front of me, I'm continuously nervous about the things that I say.
I own it. It's who I am. So you had some physical things come up for you that kind of set things back a little bit for you.
Yes, I have. So almost right after I started, because I started the end of June of 2023, and in August, I had to have back surgery for a pinched nerve. And while I was recovering from that, I ended up in November falling off a bridge, and a very small bridge. It was only about 3 feet high, so don't think that I did too much damage. But
Yeah, we both
I,
I know, we were
saw our
like,
faces.
it
You
sounds
only got a
terrifying.
knee messed up from falling off a bridge.
Yeah, when I was in the hospital, I was able to tell the story that was much better about, getting trapped on the side of a mountain in a terrible thunderstorm. But being honest, it was it was just a foolish slip. Um, my foot got caught on a little plank on this bridge that was not well maintained, and just went over the side and landed on a rock with my left foot. The bottom of my leg stopped. The top of my body did not. So ended up crushing or shattering the top of my tibia. So between that and the back surgery, I do not have a desk that I sit at to record. So I'm standing in a closet and trying to do that while balancing on a crutch. made the job a little bit difficult.
That's
Yeah.
that's the perfect time to do those painful scenes where your character is going through a lot of pain.
Oh, absolutely. Just had to lean down.
No. Having knee problems and knee injuries and stuff, like I can listen to pretty much, listen about any other surgery injury, but knees, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I wouldn't do good with like grim dark audiobooks because even you just describing that, I'm like, oh my
Not the
goodness.
most fun I've ever had.
I would imagine not.
Are
What
you
did you
still standing, or do you, I mean, like in your booth, or do you have a chair now?
No, I'm still standing. So again, looking to TikTok, you see all these amazing little booths that people have, and you see the DIY PVC pipe, with the moving blankets and all of these wonderful things, and not something that I brag about, but I am in a 1.5 by 2 foot closet. And I have a little bit of acoustic foam in there, but mostly my soundproofing is clothes.
That's actually really common. That like even my narrator that I hired, he's done like singing for Disney and things like that. So he is a little bit further along, and he does his in his closet. Like when he has like little clips of him doing books and stuff like that, you can see like his shirt's like next to him, and
Yeah,
so that is very common.
it is so that I found. So I don't really feel bad about it. Like I said, it's not something I typically go around shouting to the world. You want everyone to believe that you have this perfect soundproof studio. But as long as the sound quality is good, then just make it work.
We both, Randy and I, can definitely identify with, injuries and whatnot. What is it that kind of keeps you pushing through that? Because that's not, just so you know, that's not a small feat. Like it is impressive and admirable to push through back pain, like because that doesn't just heal overnight. Back pain doesn't. I know.
Right.
So what is it that pushes you through, that keeps you motivated, that keeps you with your happy disposition, which you definitely do have?
Honestly, it's I've had a ton of health issues through my life, and the biggest thing is just that I've survived, I guess. So pretty much anything that can be thrown at me, I'm like, it's just another thing. It's fine. Oh, it's just another surgery. Whatever. Let's just knock me out. Go ahead and do what you need to do. Let me be in a hospital for a week or two, and then and get my red jello, and then I can get back to work.
You have 100% success rate with survival. Nice.
Like,
So far, fingers crossed.
that's awesome.
So, finding this passion with this now, I'm sure a lot of us, whenever we come into the job that we're like, this is what we are passionate about, we realize every other job we've had in the past is just that. It's just a job. What does that feel like for you as this fire has kind of ignited under you?
So it's been incredible, actually, because I was one of those people that never knew what I wanted to do. Uh, I have tried so many different jobs. I've done kind of the retail, food service, entertainment kind of industry. I worked at a go-kart track. I've done manufacturing for the past almost 15 years. And then to find this and it just be something that I love, like genuinely love going in my little closet and starting to record.
What is it? Is there a specific thing that you can pinpoint that you love so much about it? I know I ask the hard
I mean,
questions.
no, you're fine. Everyone will tell you, it's about being able to take these stories and bring them to life. And I think for me, I've had in the majority of my jobs, I've done customer, and it's to me the author, the rights holder, is my customer, and nothing makes me happier than putting out a good product and making sure that my customer or the author is happy, and to know that I'm able to do that, that just it brings so much joy.
That is awesome. I love that that's unique from what we typically hear because that your And I'll tell you, if your goal is to satisfy the author and, make sure that their story comes to life on their terms and what they're expecting, you're going to do an amazing job because their expectations for that book is so high that once you meet them, they know the characters better than anybody else.
Right. And that's the biggest thing is, when people write, I know that they're putting their heart and soul into their work. And I'm so thankful when someone decides to let me be a part of that world that they've created, that I want to do it justice. I want to put as much heart and soul into my performance as they have into their story.
What do you think is like the biggest, I don't want to say hurdle, but challenge that you have when starting a book and, getting into the characters and doing like what are some of the biggest challenges that you have and how do you get past them?
Oh, that's the tough question. Honestly, I hate to say that I don't feel like there are really many challenges. Again, just going over the source material and getting a feel for where the author's going. I have never been a story person, so I can never write myself, but I am a character creator. My favorite thing about Dungeons and Dragons is making a character, giving a backstory. I've only ran like maybe 2 or 3 campaigns myself, and I love when someone says, "Oh, I want to talk to somebody," because then I get to say, "Okay, there's this, young looking kid, and he's just walking by," and just immediately knowing in my mind this child's backstory and where he comes from, and his voice is cracking because he's going through puberty. He has a slight limp because when he was born he had a little birth defect, so he kind of staggers up, and you can tell that he's just this young inexperienced kid who's been put into a position that he was not ready for.
I think as soon as you said it, Kathy knew that that was going to excite me because D&D is my jam. When people say that they have creativity that is inspired by D&D, I'm like, of course you do, because how could you not play D&D and be inspired?
My question is, how could you not play D&D?
I know, Kathy, we got to get you in a game.
I watch and I listen to my son and his friends play. So, and
Just jump in
I think
here.
I also think that because I read a lot of fantasy and paranormal romance, that like, it gives me a way to connect with him because like he's like, oh, this one that he's the DM for, he's like, oh, it's like elemental kings and blah blah blah, and I understand that because I've read the elemental fae, story from Lexi C. Foss and J.R. Thorne. So I feel like it helps me to, have a little connect.
Okay, Bradford, I think you are a missing piece because we have had so many people who play D&D, but you're our first one who's actually ran a session besides me. I think we need to set up a D&D session and Kathy is going to play with us.
Oh, that sounds incredible. I would love it. And Kathy, as soon as you have a character that you can connect with and you pick up the dice and you roll them, you will be hooked.
Yeah, writing your backstory for your character and like thinking of what they've gone through and then putting them into this world where they like now have to move forward for their goals. It's like you are invested, especially if you do things that are similar to like passions for you. It's so much fun.
Okay.
I'm getting on a
Absolutely.
tangent.
Let's run on this tangent. I love it.
I know. I think anyone who brings this up, it's like a sidebar for about 10, 15 minutes and then we go back.
Let me just go get some water while y'all.
Yep, she's like, oh, I know where this is going.
I totally did.
I love it. No, and that's huge. Like, I think having that creativity, understanding of like what is capable of these characters, and as you're reading them kind of unfold in front of you, the passion for telling their story makes total sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, the fact that I have a script, so you already have the characters. They're already developed as far as their personality and everything. And I get to look at those and, like I said, bring them to life and put heart and soul into, every character on the page, and, really take that experience and feel what they're going through and how they're going to overcome it.
Is there like a is there like a genre or maybe a type of a character that you feel like that you maybe would not be able to jump into and really kind of connect with who the author wants him to be? Is there anything like that that you'd be like, I don't think that's going to be for me?
Honestly, the way that I look at it is, I've wanted to be an actor for so long, and it never felt like an actual possibility. But I feel like an actor's job is to portray any role that's put in front of you, whether it's the hero who's saving the day and has the tragic backstory, or it's the goldfish who gets to swim around and rediscover this castle at the bottom of its bowl every 10 seconds.
I love that that's what you said, because I was
That's
expecting you
a
to say
sticker.
the villain.
That is a sticker. Write it down.
Oh, I love
that's what I was expecting you to say, and then you're like, the goldfish.
Yes, same.
and the reason that I say that is because I remember being in drama in high school, and that was the first exercise is you had to be a fish and you're wandering around in your fishbowl. And I felt like it was the dumbest thing in the world. And then as I continued on and tried to develop those skills, I was like, it's so important to be able to make yourself feel like a fool and to just put yourself out there.
Okay. We have to have this experience on this show. What does that look like? How do you act through being a goldfish who rediscovers his castle every 10 seconds? Did you enjoy that exercise? Like, was that something that like you can remember how you acted that out?
Oh no, it was completely, like I said, I felt so foolish and I felt like an idiot. And I'm just walking around in a circle on a stage, with my hands by my side, just flipping my little fins and, puckering my lips and just thinking, okay, what does a goldfish look like? Well, they look like an idiot just walking around in a circle. So I guess that's what I'm doing.
See, now because you're a narrator now, I could totally hear you on each circle do a different accent. Like one would be Irish,
It's
and then
very
come around, and one
short.
would be a mafia,
Where
and then come around and be like Bostonian. Oh my, our minds, Randie.
I know. I was like, I'm picturing how I would do it. I'm like, ooh, a castle. Oh my God, has this castle always been here?
Me, I have like 10
they're
different voices
green
in
and
my
pink
head.
and blue.
I just want to know, like, one time that it passes through, it's like, oh my gosh, this color is horrible. Who picked this color? And then, like, the next time it's like, oh, this is the most beautiful thing ever.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a fun exercise. I actually really love that.
I would be cursing in different languages and different accents. Told me to do this. What the fuck am I doing? But in like Irish and Scottish, and
So you have a background in acting, and so you have some skills that you have developed, and then it's like, oh, now I get to use them. I imagine there was a long period of time where it's like I have these skills and they're just kind of left to rust a little bit.
I like to think back on the days of being in high school from drama and public speaking, and I remember I was so nervous and so shy that I have no idea why I took those classes. It was just kind of I want to overcome this fear of actually talking. And I think it came from, my family having huge personalities and me always being the one that sat back in the corner and was quiet, that I just kind of wanted to live up to that and, be able to have that same experience where I could be a part of a conversation. I could make people happy just by talking to them, as opposed to just sitting there quiet and nodding along.
As we nod along.
because because we're just
As you're
listening.
not alone.
Yeah. No, and that's
You
a
can
big
tell that
piece
we're
too.
narrator, like we're audiobook listeners, because we kind of get caught up in the voice. And we're just like,
I told Dominic, my husband, the other day, and I was like, I'm actually really glad on this new the Riverside, because it will adjust to the people who's talking. So it's not me and Kathy the whole time just like,
yeah.
Well, you can be seen, so I have to make sure that I'm a little bit more expressive.
no, you're fine. That's just our part of our experience. We're just gonna be bobbleheads. Needs to be a
Lord.
merch thing now.
It really does.
Oh, there
You
you
and
go.
I on a bobblehead.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, sidebar. No, and I think that that's a really important thing to touch on too, because those kids who go through life feeling like they are the flower on the wall and not really something that interacts with the situations, there is these places where they can be very expressive and not have to be around people. Like you are so expressive whenever you step into that booth and you live all these different worlds, and you don't have to necessarily talk to other people to do it. So it's like there's a place for you if you still want to step into the light without having to be surrounded by everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I think what pops into my mind when you say that is my favorite t-shirt I've ever seen that says, I get paid to talk to myself in a padded room. I
It's
want
true.
that shirt so badly.
After meeting many narrators, like I have found that actually a lot of them do have like anxiety and social anxiety, and that really they really don't want to be around a lot of people. And so this
Right.
really is like the perfect job for them, because they are super creative people. And I think that that internalization that they take from not being expressive, like I'm a pretty I'm happy being around other people completely, but to take that expression and be able to put it into something like, like narrating a book or something like that, just allows that creativity to then start flowing instead of it just being stagnant, because they are scared, not scared, but, literally can't get past that.
Yeah, and I think that's the great thing is you can have someone who is shy and the wallflower and doesn't really get to, or doesn't feel like they get to interact with the world around them. And then they pick up a book and you can escape to anywhere. And I feel like narration is the greatest form of that.
Yeah. And if you think about like, people who go into acting careers and they're like, that's a goal for mine is to go and be an actor. But then they realize that acting, whenever there's a person standing right here filming you, there's another set person right here, and you're supposed to act with all of these people around you, but still make it so believable. That can be a really big challenge for people. And so this is a perfect, if you still have that drive, but that might not necessarily be your scene. Like, I don't think I could do it. Like, I'm thinking about TV sets whenever I see the back end stuff, and like Jon Snow is like doing his thing, but there's literally a person standing right here holding up something and another person here. And you're supposed to be like having this massive argument with someone in front of you. I wouldn't be able to do it.
No,
Wow.
if you've never stepped foot on a stage, I don't think that you could relate or understand, but it's the greatest freedom in the world. And, whether you're focusing on the crowd or looking at everyone's forehead or at the back wall, just, I mean, again, it's like Dungeons and Dragons. You can just be anything, and it's an amazing feeling.
Well, I will believe you with all my heart, because I think Dungeons and Dragons is about as far as I will go with acting in front of people.
You
Try
should
it one
tell your
day. Just
stories
go
so
to a community theater and just hop on a stage and just make
Oh
a fool of
yeah,
yourself.
I'd make a fool of myself. You're right. It would be very freeing until I watched the video back.
You
Okay,
don't
That
have to
was
watch
we're
it.
moving.
You don't have to watch it. Just go and experience it
We're
and
moving.
then move on with your life.
yeah, you're right. I will move on with my life to another state.
Yes.
No, I believe you 100%. My son, I think, will fit right into that scene because he is a character. So I completely believe you. So another thing that you have experienced and I have experienced and Kathy has experienced is the community that you go into when you join any sort of bookish subset. Wow. Yeah, yeah,
That's pretty well put.
yeah.
What was
Yeah.
your experience, probably most specifically, with the phenomenon of book talk?
Honestly, just discovering the other narrators and seeing how welcoming the community is. I went into it and, before joining TikTok Book Talk, just auditioning like crazy and continuously thinking there's so much competition out there. How am I going to find work whatsoever? And thinking that it was going to be, backstabbing and people always trying to undercut each other. And then meeting these other narrators and talking to them and listening to them talk to people aspiring to do it. And it's so uplifting because everyone just wants to help. They just want to make someone else better. And that has become one of my favorite things is finding new narrators and giving them any kind of advice that I have. And I'm such a baby narrator myself in my own mind that, I know the kind of struggles that I went through. And, something as simple as, issues with editing or, how to stand in front of the microphone. But I love kind of being a part of someone's journey.
Yeah, that's
I,
pretty intense, I would think.
I think the community aspect, we lost it. I feel like community was lost for a little while in society. Like it turned into this very, like you said, like I'm going to look out for me and I'm going to think about what I can do to promote myself. And that's kind of the end all be all. But now
Right.
things are really shifting back into community, and people are realizing that you can do it all and also root for the person who could potentially take a position that you are applying for right next to you. Like, if you guys both apply for the same role and they get it, there is still that space to be excited for them and then be like,
Right.
okay, now what do I need to work on?
Exactly. And it just becomes the position where you want the best person for the job. And I have told authors before when someone says, I'm sorry, but I'm going to go with someone else. I tell them that's awesome. I'm so glad that they found the voice for their story. And it
Because
may
it's
not
not
be me,
personal,
but I'm just happy for
of
them.
course.
And like I said, like you said, Kathy, I don't think it is personal. I think it's literally like we talked about earlier, the authors have a vision and a bar that is so high, and even just a simple tone shift, like a slightly deeper, slightly more, higher, that is, they have that vision in their head a lot of times because we work so close with these characters and it's like we know them. So bringing
Right.
them to life, the details matter, and it's not that you aren't as good as this other person, it's just the voice that they have in their head for this person just might be a different tone, might be a different, however you bring it to life just might sound a little different.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the first things that kind of motivated me, and I want to say it was Bill DeWeese. He said that there are no bad voices. And I try to share this with newer people because, you're nervous because is anyone even going to want to listen to me? But there is somebody out there looking for your voice. So if this is something that you feel like you would enjoy doing, that you would love, then just try. There's no reason not to. And don't try and give up. Just keep going, keep doing it, keep auditioning.
I have a question for you, Bradford. So, do you, being a fairly new narrator, do you find that doing the different accents is a struggle? And how, like, are there accents that you've kind of feel like you can do pretty well? What are they? And then how are you learning to do the other ones?
So honestly, I question myself constantly as far as accents, but I am somewhat of a mimic. So if I can hear something, then typically I can reproduce it. It's kind of like doing character voices. Like, I said when I was growing up, watching different cartoons and things, I always wanted to do the voice. And, you just you listen and you replay it and you replay it in your mind and then try to see what comes out. And if it's something that you are capable of doing, then you learn that you can do it over and over again, and it's so much fun. And I think it was I want to say it was Jim Cummings that said if you can do an impression and it's a great, spot on, perfect impression, then you may be able to do that one time and get praise or applause. But if you can do an impression and it sounds terrible and nothing like the person that you're trying to impersonate, then you've just created a character that you can use 1,000 times.
That is awesome. I love that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
I
pretty
think
good.
just it's the same concept of like your personality and who you are is unique. There's no point in being somebody else because there's only one you, and if you're not being that person, then no one is. And that
Right.
personality, that authenticity does not get to shine and come to life. And it's the same for a voice. Like everyone's voice is somewhat different. Some things might sound similar, but the way that you pronounce things or stumble over things or just your uniqueness is completely yours.
Right.
Very cool.
I like that. So you talk about a little bit about like gatekeeping and how everyone in the community that you have experienced so far doesn't really do that.
Yeah, it's funny because, listening to different narrators who have been, or voice actors who've done this for a long time, they talk about when they started out, gatekeeping was so huge. And the fact that you can do it at home now, it's really an open door. And the fact that everyone supports each other, it's just, I have no other word than amazing how everyone works together. And it's almost like we're a team just trying to get every job done the way that it needs to be.
I kind of see it as like a herd of, a herd of little lambs all kind of hanging out together, and everybody's making sure that nobody's left behind, kind of how I see it.
Yeah, and if you get lost, there's always one that's willing to step out and kind of be the shepherd.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to put yourself out there and ask a question like, I'm having this issue and I don't know how to overcome it, can somebody help? You'll get 20 different people giving you 20 different responses on how to fix your problem. And it's just, it's incredible because one of my biggest challenges in life has always been, asking questions, knowing what question to ask. And I've struggled because I'm the type of person that I just want to figure it out. I want to, kind of do it on my own, but being able to open up and say, listen, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm struggling with, conveying the right emotion or, like I said, any kind of issue with equipment. I don't know how to add markers on this in Audacity. What do I do? And like I said, having the outreach from the community to step up and say, it's okay, we got you.
Yeah. No, I think things are going to turn into this really beautiful place once everyone can realize we're not all competing with each other. We actually all have a different race to do on our own that it doesn't really cross paths with each other.
Right.
And once we realize that as a collective whole, and we might not ever get there, but if we can get at least majority, it's going to be a beautiful thing.
It absolutely will. It'll be a huge change to everyone kind of coming together and working together. And I think there's so much of a holdup with every other community and everyone in the world that, it sounds nice to say, we'll all work together and there'll be peace and harmony. But if everyone could get that mindset, it would be possible.
So, kind of tell us what you're working on currently.
So right now I have a couple books that I'm doing. I want to really push one. It's called Jones and the Watcher's Way, Jones T. Harbour and the Watcher's Way. It's by Philip Domstader. It is a longer book, and thankfully, the author has been so accommodating and understanding, working with me through all the issues that I've had. But it is a sci-fi book that is also a mental health book. He has gone through some personal challenges in that world, and he has taken a lot of his own experience and written this story. And it's incredible. And there are so many people that have read it that it has helped, and there are people that pick it up and say, oh, somebody gets me, somebody understands what I'm going through, this is a character that I can actually relate to. And being able to work on that and kind of bring that to life, and submitting chapters, and I'm like, oh, I want to do this so much justice, I want this to help people. And for him to say, you know this is great, it sounds incredible, I love what you're doing, that just it's incredible the way that that feels. So it drives me to push through and overcome all those different things, just to make sure that I'm getting his work out there the way that it needs to be told. And I hope that everyone who needs to hear the story gets to. And I know that it going to audiobook format is going to reach a whole new audience. And that's really what I wish for him, because he has an incredible message to share with the world. And then there is another project that I'm working on for RJ Lloyd, who I believe she is she has so many books out under, I want to say, three different pen names, and just amazing how she writes and just pushes out material after material and book after book. And she has a series called The Pharaoh's Hills, and there are currently 6 books with an omnibus. She has a Halloween book coming out, a holiday book coming out, and she has decided that she wants to make all of these audiobooks. So she kind of reached out to me and said, I'm wanting you for book 2. I've already got book 1 cast. Do you know anybody else that I could maybe, talk to? And I reached out to, 8 to 10 different narrators, and everyone that I spoke to, she ended up hiring. And that was an incredible feeling, because you're reaching out to somebody else and getting them work. And, I wish someone would come to me and say, hey, I heard your voice and I love it, and I think you'd be great for this author or this project. And it's going to be incredible, because they're all dual perspective. So there's at least one male, at least one female for every book. And I am so excited because I get to work with narrator I mentioned a moment ago, or a few moments ago, Dana Morris, and or Ava Monroe. And like I said, it's a dream to be able to work with another narrator that I respect so much.
Yeah, and I like that you said, you are doing something that you wish would happen to you, because to see the change, you have to be the change. And to
Right.
do it yourself and to do the
Yes.
thing that you want to come back to you, that's huge. And that's like the golden rule, right?
Right. Yeah, he
Yeah.
who has the gold makes the rules. So
I was thinking like do unto others as you want them to do unto you, but same
oh,
thing.
the traditional golden rule. Gotcha.
No, yours is a little bit more yep. Whoever has the gold
Yep.
makes the rules.
There you go.
True. Are you currently working, or are you done with the Vegas Wolfpack?
So I am done with the Vegas Wolfpack. I was blessed to have been included in the project for book 2. I was supposed to be part of the prequel, which was book 2.5. Unfortunately, with the issues that I had with equipment and with my health, I fell behind and was not able to reach the deadlines that Amanda Nicole had set, which was very unfortunate, because an author has a timeline. They have their project that they need to get out there. And the biggest issue that I had, and the biggest thing that I learned from this project, was communication. I did not reach out to her and keep her informed as far as the things that were going on with my health. And I feel like if I had done that, then, I would still be a part of the project. But unfortunately, she had to let me go, which is completely reasonable, because, like I said, she had her own timetable that she needed to follow. And it is probably my biggest regret, in life, honestly, is that I failed to meet her expectation. and to continue to be a part of that incredible series. I, if I could go back, I would do things 100% different. But I wish her the greatest success in her books and the audiobooks. She has surrounded herself with such incredible talent, and she is so phenomenally talented herself. I told her, I wish that things could continue and I could be a part of the series, but I will continue to be a supporter. I will get her books, I will get her audiobooks. She is just phenomenal. And if you haven't read the series or listened to the audiobooks, I highly, highly recommend. She has a multicast for each audiobook. And like I said, everyone is incredible. Just the fact that I was blessed enough to be a part of one book, and I don't know, like I said, it's a huge regret, and it's something that I've definitely learned from. But I wish her all the greatest success in the world.
I think that that's a really good from the project manager point of view is just communication. And I'm
Right.
huge on communication in my day job and really just every part of my life. Like communication, if you do not communicate with me, we're going to have problems. But as long as
Right.
you communicate with me, then, typically most anything can be worked through. So I think that's really a great thing to be willing to voice the error so that other people could learn from your I'm not going to say an error, but you know what I'm saying, like from your situation
No, it
and your
was definitely an error. It was
answer.
definitely an error. And like I said, it was an error in judgment. And, I allowed myself to be caught up in my own issues and, being overwhelmed, feeling, depression creep in, and the whole, not good enough thoughts overwhelming me so much that, I couldn't get past it. And, I had about a week where I had computer issues where, my audio was not up to standard. And it was something to do with the computer, but it took me so long to figure it out that I ended up switching to, my older computer, which was probably about 15 years old. But somehow the audio came out great on that one. And when I finally had it fixed, then I had a seizure, and it's a disorder. I'm epileptic, and I had my first seizure in 2006. So it's something that I'm aware of, and it's something that I'm kind of used to. But when you have something like that, and then you bite a chunk of your tongue out, and you can't work for a week, it kind of it puts a huge damper on how you feel about yourself and being able to do the job. And like I said, I was so far in my own head, I didn't even think to reach out. But that's something, like I said, I've learned that lesson, and it's something that I preach to newer narrators and anyone I talk to is communication is so important.
And I think that your approach to this whole thing just says a lot about your character. Like the fact that you can just simply own that this was an area of growth that you will be working on is huge. And the way that like most people, if they lose a job like that, they're salty, they're upset, and they like to blame other people. But you're totally taking all accountability here, and you are just like, I wish the best for her. And just the way that listening to you move through this, like your integrity is so evident. And it
Absolutely.
just it shows that this is truly a learning experience for you, which is great. Like honestly, failure is the best way to success, and having these little moments of hiccups where you learn to adjust your system, you're only going to be thankful for it in the end.
And I really appreciate that. Because like I said, it's something that I kind of dwell on every day. And you talk about imposter syndrome, and that was, crippling at times. But this error, because it is definitely an error, a mistake, and poor choices that I made. And I tell my kids all the time, there are choices, and every choice that you make has a consequence. And I made a poor choice, And if she ever hears this podcast, this is going to be the first time that she's really known kind of the why. Because my biggest thing was I didn't want to make excuses. I failed her expectation. She was gracious enough to hire me. And, like I said, I let her down. And that was my customer. And, anytime you fail someone that has that kind of expectation of you, it's devastating.
No, and I'm glad we've touched on this too, because I know this is something that, most likely you're like, I hope we don't bring this up. I hope it doesn't talk about it. But being able to go through your emotions in something like that and get it out and know that you did the best you can is huge. And like I said, it just shows your integrity, especially the, not wanting to say excuses things. I think that this is necessarily something that it's a piece of information that I wouldn't even call it an excuse. It's just the facts of what happened.
Yeah, exactly. And I've always said this, the struggles are just stepping stones to greatness. Like, it's just part of the journey.
And here's a piece too that you might not think about. And me and Kathy are always that we're huge believers on like what was meant to happen is what happens, because somebody that she's meeting because you stepped away from this might be something she needed, or might be something that is a pivotal change for her, and you stepping away and having this might be a pivotal thing for you. Like, it might not have meant to be. And that's something that we're really big on. And it's just like,
Absolutely.
find the positives in it. There's definitely positives here.
And the huge thing that I kind of look at is, what narrator is she going to choose to fill that role? Is it someone who was like me and just kind of needed that opportunity? And maybe this will be their breakout role, and there will be authors and readers that hear, or listeners that hear this new voice, and they say, "Oh, that guy's my favorite. I want to find everything that he does, everything his name is on. I want to listen to it."
Yeah, absolutely. And also for you, I mean, it very well could have been a way to open you up for something different, where you would have, if you would have been committed to this long series, you just never know. It just might have freed up your calendar and freed you up for something different that will either bring you a lot of healing or bring somebody else a lot of healing through your narration. I mean, you just don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And you never know the impact that you have from the things that happen to you in your life.
yeah, and I'll take it even just a little bit a step further than that too, is like, I think that this really just showed you your mental health is important. And like, especially, I know this so well. When you have a full-time job and you're trying to shift into something else and you are taking on all this extra responsibility and all these things, your mental health is like, okay, we're gonna push you off as long as we can because we've got all this other stuff we're trying to accomplish, and then it just like smacks you upside the head.
Right.
So that honestly, I think could probably be your biggest takeaway from this is, your mental health and the way that you go through things is important. And when you get into those depressed modes where you're like, I'm not good enough, this imposter syndrome thing is kicking my ass, finding the way to be gentle with yourself and understanding like, this is such a learning process. Even when you make it big and you now take on, a really big famous author, that's going to be learning things there too, and you're still going to have to be gentle with yourself.
And I hope so. I hope that that's a big takeaway that I get from this, because it's definitely something that I have been focusing on. I've started doing therapy, and I'm really trying to understand certain things that are going on in my life, and trying to better myself and have that reason to keep going.
Yeah.
Because it all starts with you. You're not going to do anything unless you want to for yourself.
No, that's awesome. I'm so
Absolutely.
proud of you, Bradford. I will just say
Me
that
too.
myself.
Me too.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot.
So, if anyone is interested in following you or keeping up with you as you are kind of going through stuff or working with you, how do people find you and how do they connect with you?
Honestly, I am terrible at social media. I don't have a website yet. So if anyone is interested, I'm on TikTok. I'm listed as Bradford Wilson VO. A lot of people go in with a pseudonym, and they create this alternate alternative persona, and there's times where I wish that I had done that, but I'm me. And when I step into a live, I don't go in as the character. And I see other narrators, and I don't discredit anyone for doing it, but they come in as a character, and it's immediately, hey, how are you doing? Look at you being a good girl. And I don't do that. When I step in and talk to people, it's just me. Like my voice, or you're interested, I can give out the good girls, but I'm not there to perform. You want me to perform, hire me.
Yeah. That's awesome. I had no idea people came into lives like that. We've had people come into our lives before. I think if someone came into our live and did that, I would die.
Which you'll have so many people, as soon as that person comes in the live and they start, they swoon. And like I said, there's definitely an audience for it. And if you find that audience and those people begin following you, I think that's incredible. It's not who I am or how I portray myself.
Yeah. Nope. Got to be authentic to you. And that's
Yeah.
that's what I love. And that's what we have been hearing this whole conversation, is you just being Bradford. And I'm a fan of Bradford. Sign me up.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Y'all
Well,
are gonna fluff my ego too much.
What was that?
I said you're gonna fluff my ego too much.
Hey, that's part of the community, right? You gotta have that. I don't want to say the word that keeps coming to my head because I'm just going straight into the pornography scene whenever I think
You gotta
of
have
that.
your cheerleaders to
There
help
you go.
cheer.
That's my future work. So
Yeah, okay. So then I guess that's appropriate for me to say you have to have your fluffers.
absolutely. Yeah, my goal now in life is to give out as many eargasms as possible.
Right.
Yeah. I love it.
That is
Awesome.
right.
Well, Bradford, you were amazing. This was an awesome conversation, and I thank you so much for sticking it out with us and having this conversation, because it is very needed.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for, before getting started, your patience with the technical difficulties.
You're all
Issues
good.
happen all the time.
Yeah, you don't see our mess ups, and no
We'll
one's
be
gonna
kind
see
in
yours.
editing.
Nope.
All right,
Thank you,
guys.
Bradford. We appreciate you.
Thank y'all so much.
Have a wonderful day.
You do the same. Bye.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of L3. I can't wait to see you on the next one.
Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us on this episode of Lemon's Listening Library. Remember, every story has a journey, and every journey deserves to be heard. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep listening.